Hello everybody, welcome to episode 3 of my guide to Google Spreadsheets. This episode will have a focus on sort functions and pivot tables, um, with a slight bit on conditional formatting, because I got a few inquiries regarding that in the previous episode. So, before we start, I'm using an example spreadsheet dataset from the same site as the previous episode, so I'll leave that up on screen right now. If anyone would like to copy that down, I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, so let's get straight into it. First thing here is, of course, sort functions, because that's the first thing in the episode title. There's two ways that you can sort a data set on Google Spreadsheets, at least that I know of, and I think would be useful for you to know. But first, let's just clarify what I mean by a sort function. So, when I say sort function, I mean any function that lets you basically move around the data set in order to show certain pieces of data first or last. So, like an example here, I've sorted this data set here. Notice here it's all central for region, right? And then you scroll down, then it's east, and then it's west. So right now this data set would be sorted by region, specifically alphabetically from A to Z. And what that does basically is, it shows, it groups together certain regions, right? Now, if you were to use that on, say, units here, then what that would do instead is it would list units from highest to lowest, right? Or lowest to highest. So when you use a sort function on numbers, then it will sort from lowest to highest number or highest to lowest number. And if you use it on, words, then it will sort usually alphabetically. So let's actually get into some sort functions. There's the first one, which is pretty easy, and I would assume most people would be able to do, but the main drawback is that it will impact the rest of your spreadsheet. I'll show you what I mean by that. So, first step to this sort function that I'll show you, what you need to do is, you see this little gray line here that's a bit thick. When I hover my mouse over it, it becomes a hand. Then I just click, and then I drag that down right between this 1 and 2. You see, the reason I do that is because what this does is it effectively protects this top row from anything that I do to this bottom rows, sorry. If that doesn't make sense, it might be better if I show you. So, say I want to sort by item. So then I can select this column here, and right click, and then sort sheet A to Z, right? And that sorts it A to Z based on, item. And notice it also moved the other rows with it, right? So example, you can see now the central, east, and west are split up when previously they were sorted, right? Which is important, because if they don't move, then your data would just be wrong, right? And as you see, normally, because this says item here, it would count that as a word and then sort that as well, and it would be all the way at the bottom here. So wait, I can show you actually how that works. So if I reselect it now without the cell protection, then sort A to Z, notice items now move down all the way here, which we don't want, because we want the titles at the top so that you can easily understand the information. So, as I said, once again, just protect the parts that you don't want it to affect, and then, they won't be affected, simply. So there is a problem with this way of sorting, though, and it's basically that when you sort something here, then it will affect other data sets that you may have. So say you have another miscellaneous data set, just like numbers 1 through 10, for example, and right now, this is sorted by units, lowest to highest, right? So if you have another data set here and you try to sort this data set, then it will affect the other data set you have here. So example, if I try and sort by item now, then notice now these numbers are all moved around, and that's going to be annoying to read. And you don't want that, because if this is a separate data set, then you don't want to be messing with that, because it might have other important information in it, right? And the way you solve that is that you use another method for sorting. So the other method for sorting, you don't need to use this protect cell range here. What you do is you select all the data that you would like to sort, right click, and then you want to go into view more cell actions, and then what you want to do is sort range. So now you click that. Firstly, data has header row, right? What that does is basically it considers the top row as a title, right? So now you click that, and then you click what you want to sort by. Say you want to sort by region, as earlier, A to Z. Then we click sort, and then it sorts, and notice this is perfectly fine, and this is correctly sorted. So the reason that this is a bit more annoying is because it's harder to firstly access, because you need to go click more buttons basically, and I don't know about you, but I'm pretty lazy. I don't like clicking more buttons when I don't need to, which is why I recommend the first method if you only have one data set. But if you have multiple, then this is your solution. And yeah, that's it. If you don't click this, then the issue is when you try and sort, then we have the same issue as earlier, where it moves your title column as well. So make sure to check that off. Check that little option off, data as header row. Make sure to check that off if you have the titles selected as well. There's another option. You could just not select the titles like that, but I don't recommend that, because then when you try to sort, then you'll have to figure out which column your data is in, what you want to sort by, which is just annoying. And also, I mean, they built in an option for you right here. So I mean, why not? Why not use the option that's right there, you know? Anyways, so there's another thing which I'd like to talk about right now, which I will discuss after a short intermission. Okay, so I hope that intermission is over now. So let's get straight into it. We've got our data set once again. This data set can leave. Basically, in the previous episode with conditional formatting, we discussed how you can make certain words correspond to certain colors, right? Which I hope you remember. If you do not, then check out episode 2. It's about halfway through that episode. So if you're interested, please check that out. Anyways, we're going to use the sort function again, just so that you can see this properly. So I sorted by unit cost here because that's what I'm going to be coloring this by. Which actually, you know what, after reconsideration, it'll be smarter to sort it by units. So, the way we can do this is firstly select the range, then right click, and then we go into view more cell actions and conditional formatting. Click that. And now firstly, this selected a bad range, so we want to firstly change that range E2 to E44, right? And now, previously we only messed around with single color rules, but you can also have color scales, which is really cool. Basically, the higher or lower the number, it'll create basically like a gradient of colors, which is pretty cool. And it's nice when you have data which is more random, so to speak, as then you can, well, easily identify important points and less important points. So there's a few sample options here. Say you want to sort by, say you have like a range here, good to bad, I don't know. You could do this with simple stuff as well, like maybe ratings for a product, say. Um, and then you could just assign a number, 1 to 5, right? How many stars rating your product has. And then this would sort that out. So it's very easy to see here when you have everything sorted by numbers. But if we were to say mess with the sorting bit, say we check a few things, maybe sort by other aspects, right? Notice now the numbers are all jumbled around, but you can still easily pick out which are the highest price in red and which are the lower prices in green. And that's really helpful as well, because as I've mentioned in previous episodes, visualizing your data is a great way in order to be able to interpret it. And if you can assign colors to certain values, then you can easily see, oh, green good or red bad, for example, right? In this specific data set, it doesn't work as well because I assigned red to higher values and green to lower values. But say, I don't know, you change it to something like this, right? Now you can easily pick out green high values, red low values, white middle values, for example. And say you don't like those colorings, well, what you can do is you can simply add in your own colors. I personally don't really like this palette that they include here, but you can, of course, get custom colors, or you can go into here, and this will automatically let you edit your theme, which is a pretty cool tool. You can just mess around with the colors that are default included, as well as here, go into the color picker, pick your own. But I'll leave it as is for now, because that's, well, yeah, that's besides the point. The main thing here is you can use colors to easily visualize your data. So let's move on to topic 3 then, which is a big point here, and actually one of the first things I wanted to research when I started this series, and it's pivot tables. So I'll give you a short information. So let's get into part 3 of the episode. We have our second data set here, which is from the same website, link in description. Now, this data set is once again shipping, but for snacks, which I don't know about you, but I like snacks. So good data set in my opinion. Anyways, this data set once again has quite similar things, but a little bit more detail. We have here regions and as well as cities, and also products and categories of products, which is a nice touch, because when doing pivot tables, which is what we're doing now, that's nice to mess around with. So to create a pivot table, what you need to do firstly is select your data set. You may notice that this is a pretty large data set. Most of these are actually. I believe, yeah, 245 rows, which quite a lot. So we can scroll over. Let's put it in the cell K7, because why not? So the way we put in a pivot table here is we go into insert and then pivot table right there, nicely labeled for us. So we just click that, and we want to click existing sheet. We want to keep it with this data set. If you click new sheet, then it'll create a whole new sheet down here where it'll, well, exist. So now we need to input the point where we want it to appear. That would be K7, yes. Actually, let's make it K8 because I'm feeling fancy. I don't know. Just click create. Now, notice you have your table here and you have a bunch of options here. So the nice thing about pivot tables here is that they're basically a tool for you to easily summarize your data. And the nice thing is you don't have to actually move any of it around. What you can do is basically drag and drop each column of your data into these different boxes, and it'll basically do the work for you. So it has even some suggested here, but I won't follow that for now. So let's just get straight into it. We have rows and columns, which will dictate what titles your rows and what titles your columns, and you have values here, which is the stuff in between, right? And then filters that will basically stop you from having, well, data that you don't want in there. So example, if we were to change this to L1000, right? Which would be basically to the bottom of the spreadsheet. So say we wanted to calculate, we wanted this to include everything in the spreadsheet, including stuff that we may add on later. So we do that, right? And then now that's done. And I'll show you what that does later. So the way we could organize this is we put city in columns, right? So now what that does is it puts cities in the columns. Crazy, right? Then we can put, for example, product in values. And you see that doesn't work. Well, because product is letters. Product is words, right? That column consists of words. So if you put that in values, then that usually doesn't account for much. What it does do is it counts how many appear, but I'm telling you here, that's not going to be useful in most situations. So where we could actually put product is in rows, and you see now it's calculating, well, not really calculating yet, but it has city and product in a nice little table here, and all we have to do was drag two things over. There's a slight problem here though, which if you have a key now, you may have noticed we have a blank column here and a blank row here. And the reason that is because we have our data set selected all the way to the bottom of the spreadsheet, yet if we were to scroll down, a lot of that is just zeros. So what it's doing is it's assuming that that blank space is meant to be another data point and not just blank space. And for that reason, we have this blank column and this blank row. So the way we can fix that is we go down into filters, we click add, and then we can click city, and then blanks, uncheck that. And what this does is basically you can control which items it'll actually show here. And if you don't want it to show blanks, then you can click don't show blanks. Simple. And it decided to do that for product as well, which was very nice of Google Spreadsheets to do. So now for our actual values, that's the only thing that we haven't filled in yet. For values, we want to pick something with numbers. Something with numbers is quantity, unit price, or total price. I feel that quantity makes more sense here, as, say, for example, you're trying to figure out how much you're meant to ship to each city in particular, then you know. So then for values, you can click add, and then QTY. QTY means quantity, by the way. That's just abbreviated. Click that. And now we have our nice little data set here. And it automatically calculates the grand total here and grand total here. There's another thing you can do though, which is why I absolutely love this function. We have this very easily created summarization of our data, but another thing we can do is we can filter it out even more. But when I say filter it out, I don't mean like this. I mean like we can have multiple things for column and multiple things for row, and I'll show you what that looks like. One thing here is that category and product are linked, right? That's just a feature of our data. Category is category of product. So what we can do is we can put category in with product. And what this does is basically, if you look a bit closely here, what this does is basically it lumps the product in with the category. So what you can do is you can see the totals for that category of product as well as the individual products. And the nice thing is, if you don't want to see something, then you can click the little minus button here and then it gets rid of it. Isn't that nice? So now you have that data summarized and even sorted out in a way. And that's another nice thing with this tool. You can easily take large, daunting data sets and then compress them down into easily manageable tables, which is why I recommend this tool. And that's it for this episode. So to quickly summarize, we went over pivot tables right now, we went over a bit more conditional formatting, and we went over sort functions. And that's the episode. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please do not refrain from putting them in the comments, and see you next time. Bye bye.